I don't know how to. Yeah, we are.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. You're going to track the questions.
Yeah.
Welcome to our January SIP meeting. Today's agenda is as written in the description. And the first 2 points or 1 point is auto application Eta Expansion, which we've been discussing in length over the past couple of months. The community gave their opinion. The summaries were made. Miles proposed back in, I would say, October, proposed to merge those two, that they are like linked, so we can speak about that. The third part is opaque types, where we are going to, so we are now doing something that we promised the last SIP meeting, bringing up SIPs that are lingering on the let's say Scala 2, Scala 3, so the SIPs that are open. So opaque types, trait parameters, just to make a conclusion of this discussion and what is the next step, do we vote? Then Vararg Patterns, which we decided that there is no need for like discussion on the forum because it's a small change, I think. We have Olaf pinging us about uses of the Vararg's uses of immutable something. And then the final point is moving forward and organizational questions. And hopefully we are going to get through all this in 45 minutes so I can be here for the 7th point. So please make me proud. I would, thank you.
Usually we have 4 points and we don't make it.
Yeah, we proved last time that we can do many things. So let's start with the auto application Eta Expansion. It's between Miles and Adrian. Adrian, take the floor. And here's where you really need to be.
Miles was going to start with
Miles, would you like to start?
It's fine. It's fine.
I mean, please, gentlemen.
Not to steal your thunder.
No, please, it's all yours.
God, I was just going to quickly prepare while you were talking.
Oh, no.
So I think the biggest change in Eta Expansion is that it will happen regardless of expected type. In Scala 2, it's driven by requiring a function type or a function-like type, like a SAM type. That will remain the case for function 0. Where I think none of us want SAM types to drive zero-array Eta Expansion. That's something that isn't super explicit in the spec as it stands. And then for insertion of the empty argument list, so auto application, my opinion is that it's currently too complicated as specified. I think we should just say any directly Java-defined method gets a free empty application, and then deal with the overriding side of things separately by saying, well, if you override a Java method, you can do so with or without arguments or something like that. I think I think it should be a separate thing. So that's, I guess, how we're not going to get everything done within 45 minutes. But I mean, the key thing is that the application of the empty argument list and Eta Expansion of a function 0, they used to be the other way around in Scala 2, and so now the insertion of the empty parentheses will take priority, except if we're expecting a function 0. Right? Do I summarize it correctly? I don't have a cheat sheet. I'm just sitting here.
There's like many combinations.
There are many combinations, and so especially when you get let SAM types be involved, it can be pretty confusing.
Yes.
Because there's accidental SAM types.
Yeah.
And usually,
so I guess we should discuss if we require the add functional interface.
That's another thing that we can draw into this discussion. I think that's maybe out of the spec because it's a warning. But then if you want to make it required, yes, we would have to spec it.
I will. Okay. And then, so yeah, related to the Eta Expansion thing is, can we deprecate underscore for Eta Expansion or not?
So I think yes, if we do uniform Eta Expansion, well, except for, again, for the zero-array case, which kind of complicates all the arguments, because often in DSLs and all those, like, I don't want to see my funcs, but I want them for my, for whatever reason. it makes it pretty noisy to have like empty parentheses, arrow, empty parentheses at the end. Which is why we made the exception that there we still do it if the expected type drives it.
So maybe that's good enough.
And if that's good enough, then we could drop the method value syntax. I think one less use of underscore is a big win.
Yeah.
And it still has the lost use case of multi-argument list expansion, which you would, I don't know. Well, again, no. I guess since you don't, no, I'm still thinking about Scala 2. No, never mind.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
Well, there is no difference when you. I was confused. I confused myself for a second.
There was also the interaction with default arguments. When you do foo underscore, do we get the defaults or do we get?
Yeah, I think they should be part of the Eta expansion, right? We don't have a notion of function with default arguments. For implicits, it's different, but I think default arguments should be included in the Eta expansion, right?
Yeah.
I don't even remember which one is the behavior we have.
I assume that that's the current behavior.
What do you mean?
That
when you do foo underscore,
yeah.
Foo is a method with, say, two parameters.
One of them has a default.
Yes. Do you get a 2-parameter function or 1-parameter function and the other has a default?
No, it's a 2-parameter function.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's the behavior.
Yeah.
And we are.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's the only logic.
Yeah, but if we deprecate the foo underscore syntax, then you will have to write foo parents 1 underscore.
Huh?
Or if you wanted to explicitly write like the shortest way to write the function literal that does the insertion of the default value, yes.
Yeah.
But that was always the case. I think that's good.
Yeah.
You shouldn't get any default arguments when you convert the method to a function value.
Okay.
So I think basically everything as proposed, I'm happy with. The one thing that I have some issue with is the complexity of the rules for Java. Like any Java defined method in the override chain, I think we should just look at what we know as a static type and solve everything in the chain when we're dealing with overriding decisions rather than at the call side. Like there's similar problems that I was recently looking at a bug report in Scala 2 where we pretend that if you override a Java method, you actually have a method type with an empty argument list rather than a nullary method type list, and that gives problems with accessors. When you override a Java-defined method with an accessor in Scala, it's no longer seen as an accessor because they're assumed to have no argument list instead of the empty argument list. So null versus zero array, or a parameter list versus zero array.
Yeah.
So there's a whole kind of other.
But there's a bit of a kind of worms. What if you have two traits and or interfaces, and one of them is a Java interface, and you inherit a method with open parents, closed parents, and the other is a Scala interface, and you inherit without. Now the joint thing, does it have? Is it Java or is it Scala? What is it? So what? How do you call that one?
Well, I think there maybe you should be required to resolve the ambiguity between the two methods that you inherited.
How do you do that? Like you
override? You do override and you call like whichever.
So, yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is that it is complicated and it should probably be resolved in the overriding side of things rather than the insert empty parens side of things. I think it's far less surprising if you just have to look at whatever you statically resolve to, and that's it.
There's a lot of details here. Given time, I mean, is there anything here that anyone is truly like concerned that thinks might be a blocker, as opposed to there's a lot of details we need to figure out?
No, I don't think it's a blocker, but I mean, I think as the summary of the discussion, I think it's good to reignite this part of it to make sure that we get some discussion around that. I don't think it's a blocker to anything. It's just we do need to flesh it out before we ship it.
Okay.
And we need to be able to do the rewriting automatically, I think.
What?
Of like adding the parents where we need to or not. Like using Scala fix. And that might be easier with the current formulation than the one you propose.
I don't know. I mean, I think you can also do the rewriting at the point where you detect a problem with the overriding.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
So I guess the current one is sort of, so you say the current one is still too lenient. We should be even stricter than the current one, at the risk of breaking more by backwards compatibility things.
I mean, I think having like mixed hierarchies of Java and Scala that go back and forth between empty argument list or no argument lists, we're doing them a favor by telling them to clean that up in the hierarchy itself rather than at all the different invocation sites.
Yeah, but the counterexample is always two-string.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And you say, hey, it comes with an open parents, closed parents, but it makes no sense. You don't want that, so you will have to live with mixed.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have the two-string defined in Java,
yeah.
you can you reference that one directly.
Yeah.
That's the base case of the recursion, right? Like that's
right.
fine. You don't have to supply it.
Yeah.
Then if you're going to override it,
yeah.
we could make the rule be, well, you can override two-string from Java with a parameter-less version in Scala. And then again, like the statically defined version is fine because it's a Scala defined one that doesn't define argument lists. The only thing that you would run into problem with if you overrode two-string with an argument like list parameter list, now you have to call it with an argument list, an empty argument list. But I think no one does that. So I mean, you should just resolve it when you do the overriding, and you just give them a little bit of slack when you override, because in Java obviously you can't not define an argument list. You can override the one without the argument with the argument list that we inherited with one without, just to rehash.
Okay, yeah. So there would be a.
But I think that also solves the problem with accessors and stuff like that, where you actually see those two as overriding rather than behind the scenes as it's currently implemented, changing the type to pretend that you're actually had defined that argument list and now disqualified yourself from being an accessor.
So I think changing is fine, but we need to make sure that like the standard library conforms to this pattern and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
Because I guess it's binary compatible, so we can change it after RC1, but not after .0. But it's not source compatible. Probably.
I have to think about that, but I mean, yes, we should probably fix it. Yeah, it'd be nice to fix it. Yeah.
But so, yeah, I don't know if we want to go into the implementation side of things, but
I think this being the spec side of things, we probably don't have to, but we should discuss that offline. Okay.
Is there a plan for 2.13 to implement this stuff, or maybe under a flag or something?
Yeah, I think this is one of those easier wins for migration that we could do earlier.
But not by defaulting to 14. Maybe? Okay.
To be discussed.
To be discussed. Okay.
I don't think we need that today.
Okay.
The other
Miles
about this topic.
No, I think Adrian's pretty much covered everything I would have had to say about this, and a great deal more.
You're welcome.
Others? I guess no. I'm just going to guess that.
Okay.
So should we move to the next one? And that should be Miles in any case, or
Really?
was that
Which one?
Eta? No.
I mean, we basically covered
so
1 and 2 already.
So that he doesn't have any. Okay.
No.
Opaque types. Okay. So this is the list of things that we got so far. Is that the documentation and the tests? So what is written and what is done needs to be cross-referenced. And just let me.
So we have we have an implementation which has been reworked many times and discussed many times, and the current page in the reference section of .NET basically just gives a short intro and then points to the zip35 as further information. But the point is that the implementation and the zip do not agree 100%. There's one thing in particular which doesn't, well, yeah, there's one thing in particular which doesn't work, and that's the fixed point example of the zip, because the fixed point example basically assumes that you will have a bijection conversions back and forth, and we actually assume a type equality, and that just doesn't work with the fixed point, because that would assume a recursive type which we don't have. So that would have to change, of course. And then I noted also, by essentially taking all the examples and putting them into tests, that there were quite a few typos in the zip where things didn't compile. So again, one would have to sort of go back and take the test cases and retrofit them to the zip. So that's the current state, basically.
And from that point, we can vote on it. It should be like, once that part is done, we should bring it back up.
Yes, so I guess yeah.
And this person should be the author of the zip, or?
Yeah, I guess it would be best if that could be the author of the zip.
Which is Jorge?
I think.
And you were the.
Yeah.
Co-author.
Yeah, Eric and yeah.
Yeah.
You were just the supervisor.
You were the referee.
Shepherd or whatever.
Okay.
Guy with the criticism.
Okay. Any other comments or things about this point before we ship it to people that need to do something about it? And
I should say, basically, all of the code except for the fixed points is part of the test. So we do have correspondence there. So, but still, it would be good to just go through.
Yeah, it's just that the text has typos, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
So that should be easy to fix. I mean, I think the main thing is to agree on the fixed point example no longer working, and then fix it. That's minor, right? I mean, I think,
So I don't know if it's explicitly part of the SIP, but there was some related discussion about value classes and whether they should be deprecated or not, which is something I'm strongly against. But
you're strongly against deprecating value classes?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Because I don't want people to rewrite all their value class into opaque type, and then in like 2 years have to rewrite everything back into value classes because
it's optimist.
Yes, very much.
because of Valhalla.
Because of Valhalla.
Valhalla, yeah.
Because of value class stuff.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of opaque types in general, but I don't want to reopen that
discussion. You can vote. I mean,
yes,
that's your power now.
Exactly.
I like to characterize them as being parked value classes. So for the moment, so we still keep them, but we don't touch them. We don't talk about them. They're parked.
So we can make a deprecation warning or something.
Well, how about a language import?
No, not language imports. That never works. That doesn't like.
I mean,
it could be
in this sense, it would work. Like the fact that it doesn't work as a language import would fit your purpose.
I don't want to gratuitously add a billion warnings to someone big because they use value classes. That's
I mean, in any case, I mean, regardless of Valhalla, I would try not to deprecate value classes just too early. Like keep deprecate them in 3.2 maybe or something like a bit after, because it's something that otherwise you just can't have cross compiling with 2 and 3 like in any way. So it's completely it's a very harmful warning in that sense. So I think we need at the very least we need to wait until the ecosystem has mostly migrated to 3 before we deprecate them for real.
Right.
Do we have a sense for what in an empirical sense of what the main uses for value classes in the wild are? I mean, my gut feeling is that a really very large proportion are combined with the implicit keywords, so implicit value classes for providing extension methods. The extension methods proposal appears to me, from sort of playing around with it just recently, that it does a vastly better job, certainly in terms of generated code than value classes here. Do we not already have an adequate replacement for them?
Yeah, we do have the adequate replacements. I don't think we're the only concerns here are what I expressed as we don't want to. I mean, we don't want to break cross-compiling, and by breaking, it also means like being swamped over hundreds of deprecation warnings in 3.0. And that there is the other concern that Guillaume expressed, which is, yeah, maybe Valhalla is going to give a new birth to value classes, and it's not the right time to get rid of them. In either case, we're pretty much convinced that regardless that the use cases for a value classes that we know today have adequate replacements, either through extension methods or through opaque types.
Mostly, yeah. 95% at least, maybe 99.
But there are other use cases.
They do let you define your own toString. That's about the only thing that remains. So if you want to write meters to print with toString, one meter, then the value class is your only option.
So the pessimistic view is that Valhalla lands and is slightly incompatible with our design for any val. And we had deprecated it so that we could, reuse it.
So looking at it, I've been trying to follow the discussions. They're trying to be very conservative and make sure that actually a lot of Java classes can be used as value classes. Mm-hmm. So they're even thinking about like, what's a nullable value class and what does that make sense or anything. So I think it's unlikely that our thing is going to be very unlucky and just don't match the semantics, because their semantics are going to englobe a lot of things.
The other thing is that Kotlin just acquired value classes.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
So there's now even more weight to sort of keep that sort of going forward. For any
fine. You make a compelling point.
I think they even called them.
Okay, next topic.
Next topic before.
So there's one more thing on opaque type. Sorry. Which was the scope of the opaque type. So there was the SIP has always assumed that the opaque type is like the alias. We can see it inside the companion objects, and like one thing we discussed, but not very much, was what if instead it was the scope in which the opaque type is declared, which can make some patterns more natural. Like if you have a class and you define an opaque type handle inside it, and the handle from the outside world is an opaque thing, but from inside the class, it's concrete. So I don't know if we should discuss that
is now much less attractive that we have top-level definitions, because we have top-level opaque types, and then the scope gets awfully large. If it's the enclosing package, then that's not really the point of it anymore. So
I think it's good to make people have like a nice little spot to put those things, and not the idiom of having a type, a class, and a companion is pretty deeply ingrained, and people tend to put things in there that are related to converting to and from the type anyway already. So I think it's, I don't know, pretty ergonomic.
Okay, maybe
it's also fairly easy to explain as the equivalence is private to that thing.
Right. It gives you a good handle on. Plus, it helps with the implementation a lot.
Okay, so it seems that there are more things than a fixed point example.
No, I think pretty much.
No, this is a big tangent.
Yeah, but I mean that there is more to like go deeper to speak some things. You need to look at me and say yes or no, because you're the person bringing things up there.
I mean,
no, okay.
I
so
brought them up. No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm happy for you.
It's better than tweeting them.
Okay.
FTR.
Fourth one, I'm going to give it to Josh, because he was the one promising back in September that he's going to go back to some of his libraries and try that uses a lot of trait parameters and replace them and see how clean would the code look after the change. So Josh, have you been working on it?
That's where you've been this whole time?
Yeah.
This is a very unfair way to remind him.
I know, but we need to start somewhere with this topic.
Okay.
I mean,
no, I'm still for trait parameters. I did not have a chance to go back as deeply as I had hoped. I think I did like one thing, which is not very thorough. But I was. I'm like I said, I'm for the change totally, but I didn't go back, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Miles, why you're like this? I hope everything.
That wasn't an expression of despair or anything. That was just.
I mean, is there any objection to get trait parameters in now? We could talk them over at length, no?
I think we're all good. I'm not aware.
Should
of
we
any
vote? Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
The concerns were, I think, were about dropping the weight in it rather than about adding trait parameters, right?
Are you using early initializers, you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I can add just a small remark, because I was supposed to be the one watching the thread on Scala contributors for trait parameters. I think there were only two things that came up. One was what remains to differentiate classes and traits, and I think both Adrian and Sebastian clarified that point. And the other one was more of a feature request from, I think, Oron Port about what if you have a trait with implicit parameters, and those can be filled in by the compiler by the current rules of when you're allowed and when you're not allowed to pass parameters. You might need to repeat extending the trait and still leave the parameter section empty. So can that be magically added by the compiler? And Martin said that's something that we can consider later, but for the moment it might be too much magic. So I think, to conclude, the community didn't find anything wrong with the proposal. So I think, since we all seem to agree that it looks really good, we can probably even vote for it now. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
We can, but it sounds like you're on the bus.
That's correct, Metro, but I can mute myself now if that's a problem.
The main room is muted now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does anyone remember exactly what was the specific rule for what is passed when, basically?
So trait parameters have to be passed from class to trait, never from trait to trait. And the first class implementing a trait has to pass its parameters. That's the two rules.
It's almost easy enough to remember.
Yeah.
Just if a compiler complains, you have to add some stuff.
That's how I would do it. Like the parents.
It's like the pluses and minuses.
In particular, if a trait is only implemented by other traits,
right,
not directly by classes, then you can't pass parameters to it. You have to refactor your inheritance thing that essentially the leading class inherits a trait directly, but that can always be done.
So can we vote on this one, I guess?
Oh, yes. 30-second minute, and we are voting. Okay. This is what I call success. So,
just looking at the comments.
He really wants to take over the meeting. He has like a second agenda.
I mean, listen, I'm about to leave, so
it's fine.
Perfect. So let's vote. And the motion is?
The motion is to accept SIP 25 trait parameters in the form that is actually already on the website as is, which is very well documented.
Perfect. And we are going to start with Julian.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you. Josh.
I'll give an okay as well.
Okay. Miles. Yeah, we can all.
Okay.
Okay. Another okay with the thumb. Okay. 2 thumbs up. 1 thumb up. How do I do this, people? Yes. Okay. We have 1 yes.
Yay.
Yay.
Yes.
And yes. Okay, unanimous.
That's an 8 out of 8.
Yep.
Oh, how about early initially?
I mean,
do you really want me to strangle the reason?
Let us breathe.
So, well, about them, I recently made Scala.js work with the latest 213 snapshots, and I got something like 13 warnings about the initializers.
Oh Jesus!
Which were actually forced down to me because of global
right.
and the way it works.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how to get rid of them.
Well,
yeah. Why did you?
In the pull request about
next
secondary,
topic.
So I need to try that.
Secondary constructors tricks.
Vararg patterns. That's the one with a smaller change.
Yeah, it's a tiny syntax change.
Yes.
Didn't we agree?
We did agree, but we never really officially voted. That's why this is for the the good morals. I put it there for good morals.
Let's do another round of okay.
Yes.
Everybody just all at the same time.
Yeah, let's put okay. 3, 2, 1. Who is okay with? Yay! Yep. I guess Julian as well. He always has this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good. Okay, done. And now, this is the next one, which was an issue on GitHub.
Yeah, that's funny.
Scala dev by Olaf. And I would give it to Seth because he was the one reacting on the thread, but anybody can take it. I mean,
what was it?
Seth, please.
And Varargs and arrays.
Yeah, so it's this change that we already made in Scala 213. Now some months ago that changes the type of Varargs from the seek, which might be mutable or immutable, to the one that is definitely immutable. And then there were accompanying changes to make for Java interop with arrays. Yeah. So Olaf basically said that this seems like such a fundamental change that it should have gone through the SIP committee. So I guess there's a meta discussion here of do we need to vote on this? Does anyone object? And admittedly, at this point, it is probably too late to change, I would think. There was an additional complication just within the last month or so where Martin has suggested further changes to how Varargs are going to be handled in Scala 3. That I can't summarize, but maybe Martin can.
Yeah, so we would achieve a great simplification if Varargs could be immutable arrays instead of sequences, because that would mean that essentially we all agree on the binary format. So a Vararg is an array. In Scala, it's an immutable array, so nobody can mutate it. And we wouldn't need Vararg bridges and this whole stuff anymore to interop between Java and Scala and this. So that was sort of a hope that we could get there. And one issue with that is first we need immutable arrays. So now with opaque types, we can finally have them. So that's an advantage. We can have an immutable array as an opaque type. In fact, one of the test cases does precisely that. So it's worth a thought. Can we do that? And in the end, we would get a big simplification. With that thought, the question is: should we disrupt the whole thing for in the 212, 213 thing? If afterwards we do something else entirely. So that was my issue here.
Mm-hmm. I think it was also the main point that Olaf brought up in the first place.
Yeah. And Olaf is here. I mean, he can come.
It's the double disruption that's really bothering here. It's so also the reason that I think I say that mostly to our outside listeners, the reason we didn't vote on this in the first place is because, well, technically the spec says that Varargs go to scala.seek, and that's just a type alias that was just changed in the library. So that's why it wasn't really discussed as a SIP to begin with. But in hindsight, it's true that it did change quite a lot of code, and in practice, code that does use Varargs has to go through a few hoops, especially to get cross-compiling to work. It's a bit difficult sometimes. Yeah.
I can offer here, because I've seen this happening in the Scala 2.13 community build, that it's true that I don't know about almost every, but many projects have had to make changes for this. But I haven't seen even one project where it was truly difficult. The individual project maintainers just have to decide whether to change their API to the new one and bump their version, or decide to keep it the old way and just just change their APIs to refer to collection seek specifically. So I've seen projects go either way, but there hasn't been anyone who's where it's been truly painful or where they've gotten stuck.
But here, aren't you mostly referring to the fact that the type alias itself changed, and that if you just call seek, but here it's the bigger issue is about varargs.
Right. So for some projects, it was sort of associated with the change to varargs, and it's part of the same package, right? I mean, this was all motivated together, so I'm not sure it's useful to even discuss them separately.
Mm-hmm. True.
I mean, is it worth bringing in Martin's slightly more ambitious proposal of making the Scala runtime independent of the standard library at this point? Because I mean, it's clearly that is one part of it.
That would be a blocker for that ambitious proposal. Yeah.
And I speaking for myself and a reasonably sizable chunk of the community, I mean that is a very, very attractive proposal. Something we would love to see.
Yeah, I really like that.
I think we just voted on something.
It
looked quite.
Unfortunately, that's just a distant dream rather than a concrete path.
I mean, I think concretely the question before is, with the time-sensitive nature of what we did in 2.13 is, do we want to go back on that? And personally, I think it's too late for that. I think, a lot of the projects in the community build have migrated already. Now to tell them, oh, wait a minute, let's just do this again, I guess you can revert. But at the same time, having them conceptually immutable isn't like a completely, irrelevant step towards having them as arrays that are also immutable, right? Because they're still going to be immutable. Like the operations that you're going to be calling them are still going to be the same ones. Like basically the big change now is that you can't mutate your varargs anymore, and that won't change between the two proposals.
Yeah, but so my issue with it. So let's see, what would an alternative proposal look like? So if you want to stay abstract, then presumably we would say, well, internally from a method, a vararg argument has some type like vararg that is convertible to sequence with an implicit conversion or something like that. Mm-hmm. But now, so now the conversion happens on the other end. It happens internally. So basically we say, well, we ship these things as arrays, and internally when you access them, you do the conversion. Whereas with the current 2.13 change, you force everyone to do the conversion at the outside to get essentially something which was an arbitrary sequence into an immutable sequence, which would be sort of the wrong thing to do. Now you convert twice or one part, yeah. So I don't know.
That I don't follow, like the twice part.
Well, because all this busy work of converting your stuff to immutable sequences would then actually not be necessary. Well, maybe no. But once we go to arrays, then we would have to convert as well. Yeah.
So it's at some point I have to bring up Scala.js.
as they leave.
Can we all?
Now finally, finally he takes over. Just before I leave.
But it's on this topic, right?
Just before I'm leaving and you can take over, I just wanted to say that we've done all the points except the organizational one. for the organization. So quick thing is that it would be really great if I would be supported by the committee somehow to move with these features, to find 5 per month that we can put up on the discussion forum, get the summer. I mean, obviously things are not going to be smooth, but at least to go through one layer. And it's important to have the community in, it's important to bring things up, it's important to collect all this. So we would need to have 5 per month as of today. And 2 we know already more or less which are going to be, and then you can agree on the rest.
So for this meeting we have to find 3 more to discuss.
Yes. Okay. So week and structural types, week conference is going to be 2, and then after that
week conformance.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Bye everyone.
Okay, great.
So Vararg's immutable arrays in Scala.js. The thing is that in JavaScript, well, Varargs are not arrays. They are something else. They are kind of JavaScript arrays, but not quite. But within the Scala hierarchy, it doesn't matter. We use seeks anyway. But when you have a JavaScript type, if it has a Vararg argument, it's translated to proper JavaScript Varargs because that's what it should do. And that's fine when we call into JavaScript. If we have a seek, well, we'll just convert it to something we can pass to JavaScript. It's not like we have a choice. But in the other direction, what we can currently do is we can just wrap the JS array-ish thing that JavaScript gives us into a JavaScript Vararg seek. And then we access it with the seek API, and it's just a wrapping, and there is no copying involved. If now we decide that that Varargs are immutable arrays, then the only thing it can do is copy it every time you enter from JavaScript into Scala.js.
Probably best to.
So I would actually take this a little bit further, and could we have a type that's actually Varargs and whose compiler and the compiler is it has an API that's very simple, like it has a length and an apply, and then it's implicitly converted to things that can work with it. But that's the only API we give, and it's not any more specified than that. And then it's the compiler, depending on the platform, it can be that or that thing.
Yeah, I think that's much better.
So basically, there would be this magical type Vararg.
Point the camera at the whiteboard.
So there would be a way to convert sequences to Varargs, because we would need that with the _ star thing. So basically that would convert the 2 Vararg conversions from this, because we still want to support that, of course, for arbitrary sequences. And then on Varargs, we would have a minimal thing, but a library could, of course, define a convenient 2 sequence conversion that gives you back sequences for backwards compatibility. Then we would essentially keep this now strictly a language thing, and we would never ever need a zip for this anymore.
Exactly.
Like, tweak it as much I mean, that's the whole agenda behind the modularization of the standard library. As a nice little side note here, the current implementation has seek in the base type sequence for repeated param type. Which means that repeated param type is actually a subtype of seek, which is actually a problem for
I saw that.
Anyway,
we should not do that. It should be a conversion.
Right.
So what do we do?
Is that possible to still get it done in 2.13?
No. if you provide the PR like tomorrow.
No, don't give him that. I'm really sorry, but I really we're already 2 weeks past the deadline for pull. We've been silently accepting more pull requests for RC1, but we really shouldn't have been. We're currently at 80 pull requests that still need to be reviewed and merged before the deadline. I think a sweeping change like this that affects a community build, the performance characteristics, all that, I think it has to wait until 2.14.
So if we were to go back to basically what is now Scala.collection.seek, I think that wouldn't break anything in the community, really, right?
That's true.
Because you're passing an immutable seek.
Yeah.
If you converted your code, and that's fine.
Yeah. I'm still not
Probably break Scala.js, but that's okay.
I wouldn't know what to do.
Too much magic. Yeah. I still don't fully understand like the whole perceived like why is it so bad to have this two-step process of first an immutable seek and then an immutable array? Like, I don't know. I haven't done much Varargsing in anger, but I don't get it.
I mean, in the community build, I've been, since it was pointed out that I was mostly referring to the changes of that weren't Vararg specific. I've been trying to think of even one project where there was anything that was actually really strongly tied to Varargs, and I really can't think of anything.
I mean, it would have to rely on people. I don't even get it. Well, what could they do with the more generic like superclass that now they can't do?
No, it's the main concern, I think, is cross compiling and not breaking your binary API. And I know Eugene Yokota made this blog post about how to try to get things working.
Yeah, but that's a very esoteric use case, I think. I mean, sorry. But
have overloads where they have Varargs and a seek thing, but I mean maybe that's so ill-advised to begin with that it's not a something we can work around.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. I mean I don't think it's. I think going back now would be just as costly as to going forward.
I think going back is basically free, but. We can try it and see if the community will right.
Yeah, I'm
open to try it.
Yeah, basically just declare that it's collection seek.
Yeah.
I don't think anything would change.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't done much of it, and I mean, we should think back to our former selves that thought it was a good idea to change this, right? Like, what arguments are we forgetting now that are no longer that we can disqualify? Is it simply because we have a better alternative?
No one thought about what it will do to Varargs.
Yeah.
It was just let's change Scala.seek to be immutable.
No, I'm sure we talked about it.
We knew
definitely
that.
Yes,
we knew that. Yeah. But I mean, the point is that we have this other solution emerging, which will not be for 2.13. But then the question is, wouldn't it then be more conservative for 2.13 to just not change anything, because otherwise we have a strong likelihood that we will change now and we will change again in 2.14. So
I mean, never stopped us before. Anyway, fine. I mean, we can stop the discussion now and discuss it a pull request. I'm happy to if we can do it feasibly in time and we have a good sense that the risk isn't. I mean, and also the discussion is probably not for the SIP meeting at this point.
That's right.
I'm thinking of the people cross-comparing between 2.12, 2.13, and 2.14. And there's 3 different ways to do Varargs for going to explode.
Maybe they'll just stop using Vararg. Anyway, I mean, it's that's my real agenda. No, okay. I mean, that's fair. Let's discuss how expensive it would be to roll back. But in any case, it's not a. Then we won't also have to feel bad about not sipping it.
Do we still have an open?
The change never a sip. If we don't make the change, it's fine that we don't sip it.
I guess we still.
I mean, if you take a utilitarian view of anyway.
Okay, so
is the issue still open in Scala Dev, or I guess we should milestone it to Arsenal?
I think we can conclude the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so the issue was closed, so I propose reopening the issue in Scala Dev, so we don't forget about it.
Yeah, can you reopen it? Then we'll look into it.
Okay.
We have Stefan commenting, Varargs are defined as Scala.seek. If we wanted to go back now, we'd either have to change the spec to say Varargs are collection.seek or have the default seek type be collection.seek.
Yeah, but the first one we want to do.
And that would, it would be the first one. So going back would not mean changing Scala.seek back, it would mean that
well, we can introduce a type alias. Let's say it's going to be the type is varargs, and it'll be an alias for collection.seek, and that's enough to do as well.
This was the reason we wanted to change the default seek in the first place. I'm not so sure about that second assertion, but
what was it?
This was so I'm quoting. This was the reason we wanted to change the default seek in the first place. End of quotes.
Well, we'll discuss, because this is really, it never was sipped, and now we're gonna look at the implementation and all that side of things. We'll take it off the meeting, and we'll report on the ticket. People can follow the Scala dev ticket if they want to follow that part.
That sounds good.
Anyone else has anything last words?
But we need to figure out what other things to assign for the next month.
Right. Yeah. So where's
we
list?
have two. What do we have? The weak conformance and structural types, right?
Yeah. The ones that I was supposed to do last month, and I didn't.
Right. Yeah. So
should we? Make amends for that. Doing two more.
Doing two more, exactly. Yeah.
So I did a list of things that are sort of reasonably stable by now, that we could just bring them up. What I had was the name-based pattern matching, the dropping existential types and type projection, and the class shadowing.
I'll take the class shadowing.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's an easy one. No, just kidding. I did. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good selection. I mean, the name-based pattern matching, it would be great to actually have that as a spec.
Yeah. And
that's probably the most work out of the three.
So
is it too early to talk about the top-level definitions?
It's not merged yet. But we could. Yeah, okay. Top-level definitions. Yeah, fine.
Shouldn't we try to go for backlog before adding more things? I don't know.
Yeah. I think we can let top level flesh out a little bit on the pull request before we.
The PR is done basically. It's
there might be.
Yes. There might be for.
Okay, yeah. We play with it for a month and.
Okay.
Okay.
Then.
We not to be the annoying guy, but we also need to add specialization as a deprecated or removed feature or something at some point, and it probably needs to be needs to be discussed.
So my thinking on that was let's deprecate class specialization, but special case in the compiler, projects and tuples and whatever, tuples and functions, I think, and let's re-implement method specialization in Dotty, because otherwise we're going to suffer through terrible performance regressions.
You think so?
Yeah, like you do for each on the list of integers, and like the boxing like kills you. I mean, I've seen people actually benchmark Dotty and say, "Oh, Dotty is slower than Scala scenes," because they code for each. So they do for loop.
So, like I said,
but I mean, those would be typical things where I would reach by now for an email.
Yeah, let's not actually get into the discussion now, because we really don't have time
right now.
Follow from the collection hierarchy. I mean, why is it
already gone for 15 minutes and we're already going into anarchy?
Okay. Yes, so let's discuss the last point, organizational issues.
Okay, so yeah, but that's basically what we need to find the list. So I really don't feel qualified for the type things, the existential types and type projection. I mean, I've never used either of those things, like ever.
Good for you.
So I've never really understood the theory behind existential types to begin with. So who wants to do that?
So it's dropping type projection and dropping existential types have it too.
Yeah.
I think Miles has used those types once in a while.
I'm happy to see both of them go. I guess, yeah, stick my name down for those. Sure.
Well, I actually did it for you. Let me just grab your hand.
I don't know if I actually have time to dive into it, but SPT used a crap ton of existential types.
Oh, yes.
I don't think it does anymore.
It does.
I hope they got rid of as much as they could, but some of it was mandated. I can at least do a little bit of investigation into that, but I have a ton of work travel this month, so I don't know how much time I'll be able to devote before the next meeting.
I mean, so anyway, here we're mostly talking about who wants to like put up those topics for discussion on contributors.scala.long and kind of follow up on that thread.
Okay, all right. I can.
It's not doing any. It doesn't actually involve any research work per se.
You have to write. You have to write the.
You have to write the
okay,
that blog, but it's
yeah. If somebody who is, can somebody else back me up if I have any questions on like specifics?
I'll back you up.
Okay, cool. I will. I can run that. What?
Is just taking existentials and Mars taking type projector?
Yeah, that's good for me.
Okay, sounds good.
excellent.
Okay, so we've got 2.
And class shadowing, Adrian jumped on it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Bye.
And that's 5 so far with the 2 that are
What are the other 2?
reconformance and the structurals.
And we'll have people to open the topics.
Me, because I was supposed to do it last month.
Okay. So we have 5.
Did you have any other on your lists?
I can check. I had the pattern matching, the name-based pattern matching.
Ah, true. I'm not sure what the latest rules are, but I could do that.
They are in the spec.
Yeah.
They are worked out in detail. So basically, it's just a pointer to the spec.
Yeah. I can do that one.
Okay.
Okay. So that's
Good.
6.
Next meeting.
So I have one more point I'd like to bring up, organizational one. Right, so I've observed keeping track of a Dotty repo, but many people think that the Dotty issue tracker is a great way to propose new Scala features, when this thing here is supposed to be the way you go through to propose new features. And so the reason for that, I think, is that when you go to contributors and you open a thread, it's not really a great way to like follow through to like flesh out a proposal. So one proposal I have is that instead of the process being that you have to create a thread on contributors and then somehow from that you get a SIP, make a repo on the Scala organization where people open PRs and that PR is like basically a pre-SIP, and then people can iterate on that.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
And we close all the language features requests on the Dotty repo and tell people to move over that. And that's basically like
even have GitHub move them like as issues at least today.
Yeah, but you don't want them to be PRs, so you really want people to act.
Okay, fine. It's
like,
a minor detail.
Basically, it's that also increases a bit the threshold. Like, if you want to make a language feature proposal, you have to actually write down the document. It can't just be like some random thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And
I would love to have the proposals separated from this torrent of stuff in the Dotty repo that's really hard to follow.
Because another thing is on the RFC repo, because let's call it like that, because that's the worst thing. Basically, they call it RFCs, and I think that's the same purpose. On the RFC itself, you will describe the feature itself and its semantics, but not its implementation, and you leave that to the PR on the Scala C or Dotty repo. Because right now, if you go to a Dotty PR, which is popular but with people, then like everything is mixed up and it's really hard to follow. So if everyone thinks that's a good idea, maybe we can like
I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Create the repo, make a thread on contributors to tell people about it, then start moving, start closing issues on the Dotty repo. That's like my main main reason for doing this.
I guess the only thing I'd add to that is just to elaborate on what you said in terms of what content should be on the PR. I think providing people with a very simple template, is perfect.
Okay. Do you have strong opinions on what that template should be?
Not really.
We're going to have to make it if you do.
We can just copy paste what Trust does.
Yeah, that's good.
think one really good thing they do is in their template they have one part which is how do we teach this, which is often neglected.
Good thing to think about.
So we can okay. So I think I'm self-assigning myself to do this.
Excellent.
We like those kinds of proposals.
You don't have the actual rights to create the report. I can do that for you.
I think I'm like, I got full time. I'm super admin.
Oh, you're pseudo Scala. Excellent.
Cool. I think we're over time already. So
yeah, we're over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wrap it up.
Thanks everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Happy week.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.
Cool.